Hey guys, I'm back again with my next video. I'm going to be continuing with anatomy of pharynx, and this video is going to be about nasopharynx. And before we start our class, I'd like to thank everybody out there who's given me your love in the form of your likes, the subscribers and all the views out there. Just keep showering me with your love and I'll keep giving more videos as time goes. Now without waiting anymore, let's start with our topic, nasopharynx.
So let's start with today's topic, which is nasopharynx. Now, what is nasopharynx? Nasopharynx is the uppermost part of the pharynx and also known as the epipharynx. Now, why is it called the epipharynx? Epi means something which is situated above. And now since this is comprising the uppermost part of the pharynx, so it is also being called as the epipharynx. Next, we'll know about the location of this. As we can see, it is located behind the nasal cavities and above the level of the soft palate. And it extends from the base of the skull, which is formed by the basi-occiput and the basi-sphenoid, as I've already told you in the last video, and it extends to the level of the soft palate, or more distinctly, the level of the horizontal plane which is passing through the hard palate. We'll quickly see this in the diagram. This is the level of the base of the skull. And this is the horizontal plane which is passing through the hard palate. So this is the extent of the nasopharynx, from the base of the skull to the level of the hard palate. Next we'll go to the boundaries which is forming the nasopharynx. Now the nasopharynx has a roof, a floor, an anterior wall, a posterior wall and lateral walls. The lateral wall houses the most important structures, as we will be seeing towards the end. Now first we'll be talking about roof. The roof, as we have already seen, is being formed by the basi-occiput and the basi-sphenoid. The roof and the posterior wall, they're continuous with each other and is sloping backwards. And within the mucous membrane at the junction of the roof of posterior wall lies a very important structure which is known as the nasopharyngeal tonsil or adenoids. We'll see in the diagram, this is forming the roof, the basi-occiput, the basi-sphenoid, and this is forming the posterior wall. Now as we can see, the roof is sloping backwards and is continuous with the posterior wall. And at the junction of both lies the adenoid or the nasopharyngeal tonsil, which is an important part of the Waldeyer's ring, which I will be covering in another video later. Next we'll see what is forming the posterior wall. The posterior wall is formed by the arch of the atlas vertebra and is covered by prevertebral muscles and fascia. And it continues down to the level of junction of the hard and the soft palate. Now the posterior wall, this is the arch of the first vertebra, also known as the atlas, and in front of it lies the prevertebral muscles and fascia. Thus we have seen the structures of the roof and the posterior wall. Next we'll go to the floor. Now the floor is formed by the soft palate anteriorly, but it is deficient posteriorly. In the diagram we'll see this is the floor, this is the level of the floor. We can see that soft palate is forming anteriorly, whereas this portion, this is deficient. So this floor is formed by the soft palate anteriorly and it is deficient posteriorly. Now this posterior space is also known as the nasopharyngeal isthmus. This is the space by which the nasopharynx is communicating with the oropharynx. As you can see here, this is the nasopharynx and through this space it is communicating with the oropharynx. Now we'll have to see the boundaries of nasopharyngeal isthmus. Now nasopharyngeal isthmus is bounded anteriorly by the soft palate, laterally by the palatopharyngeal arches, and posteriorly by the posterior pharyngeal wall. Now this posterior pharyngeal wall has the passivans ridge which appears during deglutition and speech. This is a very important structure in maintaining the integrity and during swallowing or which is also known as deglutition. I'll be showing you in the picture over here the boundaries. As you can see, this is soft palate. This is forming the anterior boundary of nasopharyngeal isthmus. The posterior boundary is formed by posterior pharyngeal wall, and the lateral boundary is formed by this structure here, a muscle covered by a fold of mucous membrane known as the palatopharyngeal fold. So this whole particular area is the region of the nasopharyngeal isthmus, which is helping in maintaining the integrity of the isthmus and closes of the nasopharynx from the oropharynx when swallowing or deglutition happens. Now, as I was telling you, there's another structure in the posterior pharyngeal wall at this level which is known as the passavans ridge. Now, why is this structure important? Now, this passavans ridge, what is it? We also call it as a palatopharyngeal ridge because a few fibers of the palatopharyngeus muscle, it sweeps backwards from the after forming the posterior pillar of the tonsillar fossa under the cover of a mucosal cover, and it forms a U-shaped sling. Now, this is basically encircling the posterior and the lateral wall. As you can see in this picture, this is the lateral wall and this is the posterior wall. It is forming this whole U-shaped sling and covering both the walls. So why is this passavans ridge so important? Now, when we are swallowing, the soft palate is getting elevated, and when it is getting elevated, it is coming in contact with this particular part which is known as the passavans ridge. This is helping in closing away the nasopharynx from the oropharynx and thus preventing the regurgitation of food from the oropharynx to the nasopharynx during deglutition. Thus, we can see how important this passavans ridge is. Now, since I've told you already about the nasopharyngeal isthmus, we'll move on to the next boundary, which is the anterior wall. Now, anterior wall is formed by the right and the left posterior nasal apertures or choana, separated in the midline by vomer its bony septum. The posterior ends of the inferior and the middle concha project into the choana, and through this anterior wall is how the nasopharynx communicates with the nasal cavity anteriorly. As we can see here in this picture, this is the anterior wall which is formed by the posterior end of the nasal septum, also known as the choana, and the inferior concha and the middle concha both encroach towards it. And through this portion, through the anterior wall, is how the nasopharynx is communicating with the nasal cavity anteriorly. Next, we'll move on to the next boundary, which is the most important one, known as the lateral wall. Now, the lateral wall houses a lot of important structures. The first structure is the pharyngeal opening of the eustachian tube, also known as the medial end of the eustachian tube, which is situated 1 to 1.5 centimeter behind the posterior end of the inferior turbinate at the level of the superior border of palate or the floor of the nose. This particular dimension is very important. As we can see here in this picture, this is the opening of the eustachian tube. Now, the distance between these two structures is very important. It lies about 1 to 1.5 centimeters behind the posterior end of the inferior turbinate at the level of the floor. This is a very important landmark. Next structure is the orifice of this eustachian tube. It is covered with a cartilaginous projection above and behind. This is known as the torus tubarius. This is situated posterior-superiorly with a longer extension situated posteriorly and extending in a craniocaudal direction, giving it a comma-shaped appearance. This site is very important as it is the site of tubal tonsil. Now, tubal tonsil is another structure which is a part of the Waldear's ring. So far we have seen two structures. One is the nasopharyngeal tonsil, also known as the adenoid, and the second structure is the tubal tonsil. These two are located in the nasopharynx and they form a part of the Waldear's ring. This picture over here is an endoscopic picture through the left nasal cavity. We'll see here, this is the opening of the eustachian tube, as I already showed you. And just behind the eustachian tube, posteriorly and superiorly, a cartilaginous portion covered by mucous membrane is present, which is known as the torus tubarius, and this is the region where the tubal tonsils are present, which is a part of the Waldear's ring. The next structure here is the fossa of Rosenmuller, which is a very important structure. I'll tell you why in a bit. Now this fossa of Rosenmuller is situated, it's like a recess. It is situated above and behind this tubal elevation I just showed you. So if we see in the picture, we'll be seeing the anterior boundary is formed by the torus tubarius, also the tubal tonsil. The floor is formed by the superior constrictor muscle and the overlying mucosa, and superiorly and posteriorly lies the skull base. Now, why is this structure so important? This structure, this particular recess, it is the commonest site of the origin of nasopharyngeal carcinoma. This is the region which should be targeted in biopsies of nasopharynx and carcinoma of unknown primaries. Now we'll check it out in the endoscopic picture here. This is the torus tubarius, and just behind the torus tubarius is a small recess. Therefore, this torus tubarius is forming the anterior boundary of the fossa of Rosenmuller. Thus, this place basically is the site where nasopharyngeal carcinoma arises, and it is a very important disease which we'll be studying very soon. Next, I'll head over to the last structure in the lateral wall, which is the salpingopharyngeal fold. It is a fold of mucosa projecting inferiorly from this cartilaginous ridge, also known as the torus tubarius. This is being formed by an overlying mucosa and the levator veli palatini and the salpingopharyngeus muscle. This muscle which passes inferiorly and laterally to merge with the lateral pharyngeal wall. We'll quickly see in the picture here, from the inferior end of the torus tubarius, a fold goes down, which is a mucosal fold covering a few fibers of the salpingopharyngeus muscle and the levator veli palatini, and it goes and merges with the lateral pharyngeal wall. This is the salpingopharyngeal fold. Thus, the four important structures in the whole of the lateral wall are the eustachian tube orifice, the torus tubarius, fossa of Rosenmuller, and the salpingopharyngeal fold. Next, we'll go on to some other structures which are present in the nasopharynx. First is a structure called the Rathke's pouch, which is a very rudimentary structure. As we can see in this picture, it is represented by a small dimple just above the level of adenoids. This is the adenoids, and just above it is a small dimple which is representing the Rathke's pouch. It is basically a reminiscent of the buccal mucosal invagination to form the anterior lobe of pituitary. Now, why are we really studying about this structure? Why do we need to know about the structure even exists? It's because it has an importance. There's a tumor called craniopharyngioma which may sometimes arise from this particular site. In this picture, we can see this is a tumor which is known as a craniopharyngioma. It arises from this particular region. Next, as I've already told you before, is a structure called the nasopharyngeal tonsil or the adenoid. This is something that we'll be covering in a later video where I'll be covering all the structures of the Waldear's ring. But just to give you a short gist of it, this is a subepithelial collection of lymphoid tissue at the junction of roof and posterior wall of nasopharynx. It causes the overlying mucosal membrane to be thrown into radiating folds, and it increases in size up to the age of 6 years. Therefore, this structure is very important in children because adenoid hypertrophy is a major cause of nasal obstruction in children. which leads to mouth breathing and a particular facies known as the adenoid facies. And after the age of 6 years, it gradually atrophies. Next, we'll come to something known as the nasopharyngeal bursa. Now, what is it? It is an epithelial-lined median recess which is found within the adenoid mass. We'll see in this picture over here, this was the adenoid and this is the nasopharyngeal bursa. As we can see, it is a median recess which is lined by epithelium and located within the adenoids. It extends from the pharyngeal mucosa to the periosteum of the basic occiput. Now, why is it important? It is basically a remnant, or rather it represents the attachment of the notochord to the pharyngeal endoderm during embryonic life. Now, why do we really need to know about this? That's because always it is related clinically to some disease. That is the reason we are studying anatomy here. Now, why is this important? There are two particular things. One is when this bursa gets infected, it may be a cause of persistent post-nasal discharge or crusting. And second of all, if an abscess forms within the bursa, it is known as Thornwald's disease. We'll see in this picture here located in the region of the adenoids, we can see the cyst-like formation which involving the nasopharyngeal bursa. And also in this MRI we can see when the abscess is involving in this particular bursa, it is known as Thornwald's cyst, also known as Thornwald's disease. Next are the tubal tonsils. This is also something that I've already showed you in the picture. It is a part of the Walde's ring. It is a collection of subepithelial lymphoid tissue and is located at the tubal elevation, also known as the torus tubarius. Now, what is this torus tubarius? It is a cartilaginous part which is housing just posterior and superior to the medial end of the eustachian tube opening. Now, why is this tubal tonsil important even? You can see here, this is the tubal tonsil and this is the eustachian tube opening. Now, why it is important is that when it gets enlarged due to any kind of infection, what it will do, it will totally occlude this eustachian tube opening, therefore causing an eustachian tube occlusion and further consequences of that. Therefore, the structure is very important as well. Now that we have covered all the structures of the nasopharynx, we'll come to the lymphatics. The lymphatic drainage of nasopharynx, including the adenoids, the pharyngeal end of the eustachian tube, they go and drain into the upper deep cervical nodes either directly or indirectly through the retropharyngeal and the parapharyngeal lymph nodes. Not just the upper deep cervical nodes, there's a second one which is the spinal accessory chain of nodes located in the posterior triangle of the neck. And sometimes it can cross midline to drain into the contralateral nodes. Next, coming to the epithelial lining. Now, if you remember in the last video, I've spoken about the epithelial lining of the whole pharynx, and at that time I had told you how two different linings are present in the nasopharyngeal area. So anteriorly, the epithelium of the nasopharynx is predominantly respiratory in nature because it is in continuation with the nasal cavity, which is the beginning of the respiratory passage. And this region is lined by ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. As we see in this picture is that of ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. And the second kind of epithelium, which is located more posteriorly, is a non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. And this epithelium is what continues down to line down the oropharynx as well as the laryngopharynx. So, in between these two epithelium, there is a transitional zone. This is the zone where the two type of epithelium meet. But it goes a slight transition from the first type, which is the ciliated pseudostratified columnar type, to the second type, which is the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. The change that we see here is that Instead of cilia here, the columnar epithelium is seen with very short microvilli, and this continues superiorly to meet the nasal septum, and laterally it covers the pharyngotympanic orifice. So, this is the epithelium which lies anteriorly, and this is the epithelium which lies more posteriorly and continues down to the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. Next is the nerve supply of the nasopharynx. The sensory innervation of nasopharynx is via the pharyngeal branch of the maxillary nerve, which is getting transmitted from the middle ear via the pharyngotympanic tube. This pharyngotympanic tube is also something which I already showed you. It is known as the eustachian tube. This eustachian tube is communicating the nasopharynx with the middle ear. This particular structure is therefore transmitting the pharyngeal branch of the maxillary nerve. The maxillary nerve is the second division of the fifth cranial nerve, which is the trigeminal nerve, as we can see here in this structure. The second innervation is posterior to just the opening of the eustachian tube. A pharyngeal branch of the pterygopalatine ganglion supplies majority of the mucosa. Now, this branch is passing through palatovaginal canal along with a branch of maxillary artery. Thus, the two nerve supply are via the eustachian tube opening comes the pharyngeal branch of the maxillary nerve, and via just posterior to the tubal orifice comes the pharyngeal branch of the pterygopalatine ganglion. Last of all, we'll come to the functions of the nasopharynx. This is something that I've already told you before, but I'll just quickly summarize on it. It acts as a conduit for air, which has been warmed and humidified in the nose in its passage to the larynx and trachea. Thus, the air that is coming from the nose and is getting humidified here is passing through the nasopharynx to continue further down into the respiratory passage. Then, second function is that through the eustachian tube, I already told you that it connects, the eustachian tube is responsible for connecting the nasopharynx with the middle ear. Why is this structure so important? It's because it is equalizing the air pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane. This is very essential for hearing. Third, I already showed you how the elevation of the soft palate against the posterior pharyngeal wall and the passivans ridge helps in cutting off nasopharynx from the oropharynx. This is very important physiological function for swallowing, vomiting, gagging and speech. This is preventing the regurgitation of food from the oral cavity up into the nasopharynx to the isthmus. Thus, we need a very patent nasopharyngeal isthmus for all these functions. Fourthly, it is acting as a resonating chamber during voice production. We'll see in case of nasopharyngeal obstruction and velopharyngeal incompetence, it will result in a lot of voice disorders. That is something very complex and we'll be learning in another video later. And last of all, the nasopharynx acts as a drainage channel for the mucus which is secreted by all the nasal and the nasopharyngeal glands. So if we summarize, the 5 functions are: first, it is helping in passage of the humidified air into the larynx and trachea. Second, via the eustachian tube, it is ventilating the middle ear and equalizing the pressure on both sides of tympanic membrane. Third, it is helping in closing of the nasopharyngeal isthmus during swallowing, gagging, vomiting, etc. Fourth, it is helping during voice production. And last of all, it is draining all the mucus secreted by the nasal and the nasopharyngeal glands. Thus, we have completed nasopharynx. In the next video, I'll be covering the next part, which is the oropharynx. If my video has helped you, please press on the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if there's any other topic you might want to be covered, you can write down in the comment section and I'll try to cover it soon. Thank you.